Hello everyone, back again with Girl Crime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap a 2006 mystery, thriller, and horror film, titled, Salvage. Before we get to the storyline, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. Now sit back, relax and enjoy the movie. In a small town in the US, 18-year-old Claire Parker lives with her single mother and enjoys having fun. She works night shifts at a nearby department store and typically travels home with her boyfriend Jimmy. Then one day, while she waits for him, a random middle-aged man drives up in Jimmy's truck. Declaring himself to be Duke Desmond, the man says Jimmy sent him to take her up. While Claire doesn't want to ride with a stranger, she jumps in the car because she has to get to school soon. Sadly, it became worse along the road. Desmond is a creep. He makes the claim that she is the most beautiful girl he has ever seen when hitting on her. Even his attempts to gain her phone number are rejected. After they arrive at her location, Claire exits the car without delay. 5 minutes later, Claire nervously checks out the window and sees the creep departing. She then goes inside and closes the door, hoping that he will leave. She is startled to discover the rear door open when she turns around. The next instant, Desmond sneaks up behind her and knocks her out. He then drags her to the basement after punching her a few times. Claire cries out for help, but it appears that she will soon pass away. Because to this, you should never trust a stranger in a moving vehicle, and you should never trust a man with the name of Duke Desmond. She unexpectedly returns to the department shop just as her shift is about to end in the next scene. It transpires that Claire fell asleep at work and that what she witnessed was merely a nightmare. She waits in the same location after leaving the shop, but this time her lover Jimmy shows up. When Claire finally sees him, she is overjoyed and tells him everything that happened to finish her off so cruelly. However, Jimmy doesn't pay much attention to her story and changes the topic. After a while, he drops Claire off to her school and waits outside. Then, in the evening, both of them go to a secluded spot and start making out. Surprisingly, while they're at it, a drop of blood falls on Claire's face. Out of nowhere, she requests that Jimmy check out the area, but the latter doesn't find anything. It seems like Claire is still shaken by the nightmare she had earlier. Later, at home, she decides to take a cold bath to relieve her stress. However, every time Claire closes her eyes, she has flashes of her nightmare, the same creep Desmond is, dragging her to the basement and finishing her off brutally. As Claire is lost in her thoughts, someone slightly opens the bathroom door. This startles her and she quickly gets up to inspect. After a while, she hears a noise coming from the basement and slowly heads there. The room is all dark, so Claire reaches for the light bulb. Surprisingly, when she turns on the light, she finds her mother staring into nothingness. It's almost as if the woman has become possessed. On being asked, she claims that she is looking for something. Claire is obviously confused by the encounter, but nonetheless she doesn't ask anything else and heads upstairs. The next day, Claire tries to forget her nightmares by spending time with Jimmy and her friends. They play basketball and hang out for hours. In the evening, as Jimmy is driving her back home, Claire spots a man burying something in an open field, but even this time she doesn't think much of it. The next few days, Claire doesn't experience any nightmares or weird incidents, prompting her to believe that she is fully recovered. However, one evening while taking a shower, she starts seeing things. Something tells me she should just stop being hygienic. That would solve everything. At first she notices someone moving behind the curtain and then sees the reflection of a man in the mirror. To make matters more creepy, she even has visions of Desmond running away from a bunch of policemen in the woods. It is evident that something really spooky is going on that night while Claire is at her workplace. She becomes bored due to the lack of customers and decides to take a quick nap. Once again, she experiences the same vision from earlier. We're running for a while. Desmond reaches a cabin in the middle of the woods and picks up a pistol, seemingly to defend himself against the cops. However, when he turns around, he finds the Chief Detective Miller waiting for him with a rifle. The vision abruptly comes to an end when Claire wakes up, confused and scared as she is trying to make sense of what is happening. Someone suddenly enters the store and lurks behind a stall. Terrified, Claire sends an alert to 911 and grabs a metal bar to confront the intruder. She then slowly makes her way to the stall, but unbeknownst to her, Desmond has already creeped up behind her. In the blink of an eye, he attacks her and starts choking her. Unwilling to give up, Claire gouges his eyes with every ounce of her strength until he starts bleeding profusely. However, despite this, Desmond appears to be unfazed. He still hasn't loosened his grip on her. He continues choking her, but at the last moment he lets go, saying not yet, yes yet, beat his ass. Claire, goddamn. After Desmond leaves the police along with the same detective from her vision, Miller arrives at the scene and takes Claire. Way at the police station, Detective Miller interrogates her about what happened, but every time she tries to explain that an intruder tried to kill her, the other policemen in the room start chuckling. This is when Detective Miller brings out a monitor and shows her the CCTV footage from the incident. Shockingly, it turns out that Claire was merely hallucinating and fighting with herself. There was no intrusion and not even a drop of blood was found in the store. Despite all the evidence, Claire is still certain that she was attacked by Desmond. She claims that she felt excruciating pain while being choked. However, to her shock, Detective Miller reveals that he actually shot and killed Desmond a week ago. The creep had apparently abducted and murdered 2 teenagers. Taken aback by the revelation, Claire finally accepts the possibility that she has gone insane. Seeing her in this miserable state, Detective Miller decides to escort her home, but unfortunately along the way she once again falls asleep. This time, she sees her boyfriend Jimmy fixing a car. At first glance, it appears to be a good dream because Jimmy's lay in that sweet pipe. But after a few minutes, Desmond arrives and bludgeons Jimmy with an axe. In the next scene, Claire wakes up in the car, but there is no sign of Detective Miller or the other cops. She has somehow reached the same open field where she witnessed a man burying something. As she tries to comprehend the situation, Desmond arrives with a corpse, possibly Jimmy's, and loads it into the trunk. Claire screams in horror, but she can do nothing. When Desmond gets seated next to her and starts driving, soon he drops her off at home and tries to comfort her. Claire keeps on saying that this is not real, but Desmond makes her understand that the only real thing in the world is what she feels. Saying this, he takes her inside the house, incapacitates her, and then drags her to the basement just like before. Desmond then takes out a sharp knife and rips off Claire's face. Later, she again wakes up in the department store, which implies that the whole thing is in a loop. She leaves the store, she reaches home, she is killed by Desmond, and repeat. Hence this time she decides to break the loop by doing something different. Claire doesn't wait for her boyfriend at their usual spot and instead proceeds to walk home. On the way, she comes across the same open field and also spots Desmond. However, before he can see her, she hides behind a tree. Later, while Claire is in class, she falls asleep and has another nightmare. She sees Desmond approaching a bloody to Jimmy and finishing him off for good. After a while, she wakes up from her nightmare and immediately heads out. Jimmy has come to take her home and he tries to ask what is wrong, but Claire doesn't say anything. However, when he keeps on insisting, Claire reveals that she has been seeing things. She has visions of a man named Desmond who finds her no matter where she goes and kills her brutally. In one of her visions, he even killed Jimmy. It's almost as if they're trapped in an endless loop. At first, Jimmy laughs at her story, claiming that it is BS, but when Claire becomes angry and threatens to walk away, he decides to help her. Later, the two head to the local church and meet a pastor. On explaining everything, the pastor tells the couple not to worry, as Desmond is already dead. Even if his spirit looms, he cannot harm them because he is in hell. However, Claire is still not convinced, so she decides to visit Desmond's abandoned house and look for clues. A while later, the couple reaches the place, which happens to be in the middle of nowhere. It is a small, eerie-looking house with a few rooms in it. Yep, sounds like a house. While Claire heads inside one of the rooms to inspect, Jimmy heads upstairs to take a dump. Unfortunately, Desmond, who is revealed to be alive, arrives at the scene. He notices someone in his restroom and immediately heads upstairs with a gun. The next second, a gunshot is heard which sends shivers down Claire's spine. Desmond has again killed Jimmy. He then loads the corpse in his car's trunk and leaves. After a while, a terrified Claire comes out of the house and keeps running until she reaches her school. Then she heads to the library and starts researching Desmond and his past. Shockingly, one of the news articles mentions that Claire and Jimmy were abducted a month back. Jimmy's corpse was found near a field, but Claire is still missing. However, due to the circumstances surrounding her disappearance, everyone has assumed her to be dead. Desperate for answers, Claire runs out of the library and heads straight to the open field where she saw a man, possibly Desmond, burying something. She reaches the exact spot and starts excavating the ground. Lo and behold, she finds her own torn face there, revealing that she is actually dead in real life. At the same time, Desmond also arrives there in his car, so Claire makes a run for it. After hours of running, she reaches her best friend Tina's house and explains everything. Her being the good friend that she is, Tina calms her down and asks her to take rest in the other room while she calls the police. Claire obliges, but as she waits for help to arrive, she passes out due to exhaustion. As expected, she has a nightmare. Detective Miller and Desmond are having a standoff where the latter tries to claim his innocence. He says that someone has implanted a chip inside his brain and because of it he was forced to kill the two teenagers. However, Detective Miller is having none of it and he shoots the murderer to death. When Claire wakes up, she hears her friend Tina talking. Someone. It isn't a cop and she appears to be saying he is catching on. He will soon get used to it. Out of curiosity, Claire peeks through the corridor and notices that the man is none other than the killer Desmond. Once again, he has arrived to finish her off. Fortunately, Claire quickly locks herself inside a room and manages to escape through the window. She then gets into Desmond's car and drives off, narrowly avoiding him on the way. After a while, she reaches home and desperately searches for her mother, but doesn't find her. Just then she hears someone screaming from the basement. It is her mother who is calling for help. Claire knows that she will never return if she ventures into the basement, but hearing her mother's desperate cries for help, she decides to risk it all. Surprisingly, when she approaches her mother, the latter grabs her and says, "Don't you get it? You have to. You have to relive what you did." Claire doesn't understand what's going on and desperately tries to run away. But at the same time, Desmond also arrives. This means that the only person she trusts in the world, her mother, has also betrayed her. But strangely, the lady tells Claire to stop calling her mother and keeps on addressing her as a male. At last she calls her a murderer for killing her daughter. Here it is finally revealed that the Claire that we have been seeing since the start of the movie is actually Desmond. He is in hell paying the price for his sins. The world he has been living in is just a fabrication and the Desmond that is after him is actually Satan. What because of the heinous crimes he committed in his life, he has been sentenced to an infinite number of brutal deaths at the hand of his real self. Moreover, Desmond has been given the identity of Claire so that he can feel and experience how scared and helpless she was when he killed her. This loop will keep on going until eternity, and no matter how much he tries to run or hide, he will always be found and killed. Psychopaths don't feel anything after the revelation. We see Desmond in his original self being carved open by Satan. The movie ends as Claire aka Desmond again wakes up in the department store ready to start the doomed cycle again. You guys are fantastic if you have seen this far in the video. Thanks for watching. If our girl crime recaps amuse you, please remember to ring the notification bell and subscribe button. Thank you.